So it was a year ago, is it a year ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, a year ago that we did this.
Yeah.
You said to me, come visit my shop. And I was like, man, I don't know where the hell your shop is. How am I gonna get to Morgan, Minnesota? Minnesota?
Minnesota.
There you go. It's not a T, it's a D. Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like you drink a soda.
Yeah.
Where is this? Tell me, where is Morgan?
Southwest Minnesota, southwest corner of Minnesota, about 60 miles north of Jackson.
Okay. Nice little town. How many people?
About 900.
Is there a sign that says the home of Guy Forbrook?
There is not.
So I started with Keith Kaufman a couple of weeks back, saying, mate, is there a sign that says Mifflintown, the home of Keith Kaufman? He said, no. We drove out with a sticky note with it written on there, the home of Keith Kaufman. I stuck that thing on the city limits sign. I'm gonna try and get him a real one. I think this town should have your sign. You'd be the most famous guy that come out of this town.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I do.
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, famous how? I mean, at the end of the day, you just do your job.
How about notorious?
I mean, there's probably doctors that came out of this town, or nurses, or World War II veterans, or whatever.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but in Australia, they don't know those guys.
No, they don't know those guys there. Yeah.
I love talking to you, mate, because you're still so passionate about this sport. You've been in this shop now for how many years?
1990.
Wow. Only a lazy 30 years. I'm just getting
Yeah.
your HPP in there as well. And of course your epoxy and your 168 and all your great corporate sponsors that you have on board. Do you still love it like you ever did?
I do. I still love it like I did.
I'm glad.
I still have the passion to be here to do it. If I didn't, I wouldn't. My body's telling me different. My mind's telling me the other thing. You know, I have ran it really hard for the last 40 years, and it's took a toll on me.
Yeah. I was watching you, not like a stalker, but after we shot last time, you always have your hand on the car. I don't know if you've ever been told that or if you're even aware of it. Your right hand is always on the left rear, or your left hand is always on the right rear. You're always connected to it in the pits. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It's quite surreal. You're always connected to it.
Well, it's probably because I'm just keeping my balance. I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, I'm thinking 24/7.
Yeah.
But probably just my hands connected to it just to keep my balance a lot. Most people don't really understand that I am actually a quadriplegic, not a paraplegic.
Tell me the difference in your case.
I am hurt in my neck, not in my back.
Really?
I am hurt right here. Yeah, I lost my arms for at least a couple hours.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a C7T1 incomplete quadriplegic, basically. So when I first left the hospital, I did not have no back muscles, no stomach muscles. I was the wobbliest thing you ever seen, you know. And gradually a few things moved down, and I got a little bit more balance. And I worked at it and worked at it and worked at it. And by about 1995, I could start to stand up again.
Wow.
But a lot of it is that I'm getting older, and after this back surgery, they put them rods in me, and then you don't use your muscles what you got as much because the rods are making you more stable.
Yep.
So you're a little bit more tippy. But I always have had my hands on the car like
Yeah.
that. I've had people always say that.
I didn't feel, when I looking at it, it just felt like you were always connected to it. It didn't feel to me like you were trying to get your balance. It just felt like it was part of you.
Well, I'm always thinking, I mean, it's just the way I've always been as far as with these cars. And it's harder now that you don't race all the time like I used to.
Yeah.
And I still want to be as competitive as I used to be. So I work at it hard. And there's a lot of days that it definitely it's hard for the kind of hours that I'm doing, because pretty much what you see is what you got right here. It's usually just me.
Yep.
By myself here all the time. So I don't rip rear ends out anymore and do stuff like that, because that's why I'm in the shape I'm in.
Yeah, okay. It's a nice little shop, mate. I really like it. I like the fact that if I roll this thing out of the way, I can. That's very cool. I really like that to start with. Now I've just rolled my table away. I'll work that out. Good work, mate. Look at that. Hey.
The table behind you, the jig table.
Yep.
We built that in 1999.
99?
1999. A friend of mine that worked with us on the Pennzoil team.
Yep.
He worked for Brian Chenet.
Wow. Yep.
He built the bottom part of it, and then I went and got the piece of aluminum, and we lasered it in. It's been sitting there since 1999, that way, that exact spot, since then. And it just made it a lot easier for me not to always bend over all the time.
Okay. Oh yeah, because it's at more high level, yeah. So while we've been talking, you struck me far more as a mad scientist than I ever thought before. You're constantly thinking, you're not just going to stay with the same package of how these things work. You want to develop every bit of these cars that you can. Do you think you'd be feeling the same way if you were racing these days? Or has getting hurt and becoming an owner and a crew chief and all that stuff made you more aware of different parts of the race car and have the time to do that?
Well, honestly, yeah, I think a lot more about it than I did back then. Back in the day when I was a 19, 20-year-old kid, you never thought about safety. You never thought about anything but getting in there and blowing your hair back, you know? And my biggest thing is I don't ever want to have a car that anybody ever gets hurt in because we screwed up, you know? So I'm pretty anal about maintenance on one of these things. I mean, the thing that happened this last weekend in Knoxville for an axle to break, trust me, I was on the phone the next morning to the company that built it because I was pissed. I don't want to get anybody hurt in one of these things, and I take that very seriously.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a 17-year-old kid, your son, or a legend like Darren Pittman.
Don't matter. I don't care who it is.
What was it like having Pitto in the car?
It was fun. I mean, I've been around him a long time. The first time I ever met him was in a parking lot at Devil's Bowl in 1997.
Isn't that cool?
And he was having a problem with a motor. The mag was out of it and they couldn't get it started. So I helped them put the mag in the motor and get it running that night so they could race. That was the first time I ever met him.
26 years ago.
Yep.
Wow. You know what was super cool? The other night watching Shane Stewart and Pitto, I love hearing Johnny Gibson and Tony Bockhoven saying from Owasso, Oklahoma, from Bixby, Oklahoma. There's two guys in any other sport, elite sport. Tom Brady can't retire now and come back 5 or 6 years later and throw the ball around at the same level he did before. Yet, Shane Stewart and Darren Pittman can get up to speed within a few laps. Now, not as consistently as we've been talking about that, but still, you can do that at their age in our sport.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, honestly, because they've done it so much, it's kind of like riding a bike. Once they get in there and they get the bike pedals moving, it starts to come where it's this, the way that they're, I mean, you could put Steve Kenzer in the car tomorrow, and I promise you in 2 laps, 5 laps, he would get up to speed.
You think?
Oh, I guarantee it.
Really?
He might be old, but I promise you, he'd still get her up to speed. After he drove it a few laps and got used to it again, it's this, them guys have all done it enough that it's like riding a bike, that once they get in it, I mean, I'm not saying that they're going to run wheel to wheel and slide jobs from town and whatever, but Sammy still drives them around there, and he still drives them around there at a high rate of speed. But at the end of the day, is Sammy's 68 years old, and at the end of the day, there's all comes a time when we get older in life, you know, But do I think Steve could still drive that thing around there? I don't guarantee it. He'd drive it around there, and if you asked him to, he'd run her flat Willie, you know? So...
What about your mate with the Polish last name?
Lasowski?
Because he reckons if he got in it, he'd wheel that thing to the bottom like he always did, but he said he's too scared to do that because he wouldn't be enough. He couldn't just leave it at that.
Well, I mean, I think he could do it. Of course he could, because he's raced enough too, just like them. I mean, that's all he's done since he's been 18
Yeah.
years old too. He positively could run the gas and the throttle and run it around there. But the biggest thing, none of them want to admit that they can't see past their nose, and that's just because of our age, you know.
Yeah.
And you can't judge things quite as easy when you can't see, and you don't get quite as brave, or hopefully you don't, and where you're running and what you're doing when you can't see. And that's the biggest thing, I think, that nobody wants to admit, that you can't see when you get older. Nobody wants to wear glasses. Nobody wants to do that stuff if you've never worn before. Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you put Hot in there tomorrow, he'll drive that thing wide willy right out of the box, you know. So, but as far as racing side by side, it would take a while. I mean, when Steve and Sammy left and came back, when they're in their 40s, it took them a couple months to get up to speed. So within 2 months, do I think Darren and Shane would be wide open again? There's no doubt about it. Once they got going, and if they raced night in, night out, they'd take right off.
Yeah, I was talking to Shane. I was listening to him tell someone that halfway through the heat race the other night, he found himself breathing heavy. He's like, he just had forgotten muscle memory, whatever, but how much toll it takes on you physically against these kids. And Shane's in good shape.
Yeah.
Like, he's in good nick.
But he's holding his breath.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't been doing it. And once you get going that kind of speed, if you're normal and you're human, you're going to hold your breath. And once you get to riding that bike, then it's old hat. You get in there and you got to start running that speed, then you don't hold your breath. And if you hold your breath and drive one of these things, you're in big trouble, because then all of a sudden your wrists start cramping up, your hands start cramping up, then you got to start talking to yourself to hold your hands around the wheel, and then you start slowing down, and that's all part of it.
So I know this is a business for you, and it has been for a long time, Guy. It's been the way you earn your living. It's been the way that you still keep your passion for what you do. Every night, every week, you are in the center of the biggest circus in the world, the Knoxville Raceway. During the Nationals last week was massive. Like, even from Wednesday, it looked big, you know. There's a rising tide in our sport right now. You can definitely feel that. Do you get a chance to check up and go, this is cool, this is the Knoxville Nationals, or are you just so damn busy that you don't get a chance to?
No, I mean, honestly, after I left there on Friday, after we crashed, and I left the crashed car, and I watched it on Friday night, I told everybody I'd never seen that many people there already on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then Wednesday, how many people were there? And Thursday, I'd never seen that. It's definitely, there's a lot of people there. But yeah, so then I was watching the race. I went out wheeling that night. I'd go out and I'll wheel 3, 4, 5 miles at night. And I was just watching it on my lap while I'm wheeling. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I brought tears to my eyes that I was here, then not there. It did, because I mean, I still love it, and I miss it.
So tell me what wheeling means.
Like, get in my wheelchair and
You don't have like a sporty model or something like that, or you
no,
just use
this
that
right
one?
here is what you see is what you get.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, this small little town with no street lights, hardly, or no stoplights, I just go up and down my streets, around the corners and whatever, and it's at night that it just gives me time to unwind from this place. You know, I'll sit here until 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then I'll go home and wheel until midnight. You know?
Really?
Yeah. And you don't even have to even carry a gun.
So it's a pretty little place, huh? You told me I shouldn't have locked the car out the front.
Yeah, I was laughing when you did, you know.
You gotta be careful, mate. That's a Pella Motors Jeep that I've been lent. Why does it mean so much to you? Why does it make you emotional?
Well, probably because it's been your whole life, and you put your whole life in. I mean, my whole life, you're sitting in it, except for my 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, everything has a story to where I got it, what I did, from the tool carts to the lays to whatever, and I always, this has been my, after I got hurt, I had to find something to get my mind unraveled. And honestly, for a while, I soul searched for a long time, but this is what did it, you know? After I did the research work and then I came to start to do this, I never dreamt, honestly, that we were ever gonna win what we did, ever. I mean, like, you're sitting in the shop when I got this in 1990. My actual shop was down this alley and around the corner on the gravel. That was when we won our first Outlaw show. That's what we had for our shop. Gravel, the gravel alleyway here. There was no roof over your head. There was no nothing. There was barely a front end or a rear end in the trailer, you know. And we put a lot of hours in, a lot of days, and I mean, this is all I've ever done. And I mean, from every part, from the front bumper to the back bumper, I made it where I knew everything about it. And even like when we started, we had Gambler cars and we won races and Knoxville championships, and then we went to the American Challenge cars, and that was actually with Bob and Virgil from back there from the American Challenge days. Was out of a 2-car garage basically shop, and they built probably 10 cars a year, and we were winning outlaw shows, Pacific Coast National races without wings. I mean, if you sit back right now and then you think about that, what we did as kids, it kind of blew my mind, you know, as you think about it. And them cars were really fast back in the day, and nobody really even ran them or did anything with them, and they were badass. And then we got into the Schnee cars and the Maxim cars, but the steady thing is I've always been right here, you know.
Yeah, consistent.
I mean, I moved around to work for Steve and went to Big Game and helped Ray Everham with Aaron a little bit and beat Packers for a few months and just stuff like that. But it's always usually been right here where we always had, and we built everything, you know.
During the Nationals, it's such an intense environment for people. Tasker Phillips said to me last year, it wore him out peopling, he called it. He was used to just sneaking in the pits. All of a sudden he had a massive first night, set quick time, had an awesome battle with Kyle. Suddenly everyone wanted to get around Iowa and Luke Bryan. You are unable to escape the public eye because you're so easily identifiable, and Brad Doty would have the same challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't just sneak into a crowd and blend into it. Is that hard? Is that where you are? I mean, everyone, don't get me wrong, you're not getting people coming up and being a pain in the A55. No. They all want to say, hey, guy. They want to slap you on the back and say, good job. But it wears you out, doesn't it?
No, I mean, honestly, it's like this. You're always only as good as your last day. Don't ever forget that.
Yeah.
Because when we won a feature this year at Knoxville, it had been 3-4 years since we had won one. And I can tell you right now, it's as hard to get back there as it was when we first started to get there. And once you lose that spot and you're fighting your way back up to there, and then you have all these people that come and want to talk to you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. I mean, honestly, I'm getting to the age where I'm old enough now where most of the young kids don't even know who the heck I am, you know. And it is what it is, you know.
That happened to me in Sydney. Horde came and raced with us at Parramatta. I say it's 2017, somewhere around the 18. And this young kid had Horde's hoodie on in the pits. I said, man, that's a cool hoodie. The guy goes, yeah, some old guy. I just bought it off him and I went, dude, don't you dare.
Yeah.
That's the wild freaking child.
Well, I mean, if Steve Kenzer walked in the door right now, most of these kids,
yeah,
if I had $1 for the last 3 years of everybody that asked me, was Steve Kenzer really that good? I mean, none of them realize what Steve Kenzer was, Sammy Swindell was,
yeah,
Doug Wolfgang was, Todd, Dean, they're all to the Kaufman,
yep,
Davis, Schumann, Bobby Jones. They don't even know who they are.
Leland McSpadden, Ron Schumann, yep.
All of them. And I got to grow up as a kid watching them, and then got to race with them, and had some great times with all of them that we just talked about, from Ferkel to Bobby to Schumann to Leland, all of them, you know. And I mean, when I showed up at Manzanita without a wing, and Schumann actually had drove by car that year because Hod got sick, and first thing he said to me is, that badass motor under the hood you got isn't gonna do you any good here without a wing. I said, I got no clue. Well, at the end of the night, we won the race and set a new track record, and I had no clue what I was doing, and we just kind of winged it. And Schumann comes over to me, he said, that is the most ill-handling piece of shit that I have ever watched in my life. And I said, but we're still holding the trophy. And it was, I mean, Hod drove it. It was Hod, obviously.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
He was the wild child.
Yeah.
And he started 6th, ran down. It was a big thing. It was Schumann and Leland on the front. So you had Schumann on the bottom, Leland on the top. Hod went right down the middle of them, drove right by, you know. And that's the good old days of fun with those guys. And then that was the Pacific Coast Nationals, which there was 100 and some non-wing cars there. So we won the qualifying night, and I was testing tires that year for Goodyear. And all these guys were running hard tires, and I had other tires with me that were softer, that I was like, why are these guys running all these hard tires? So I duct taped it and we ran it, and I ran a softer tire that night. And then this old guy in these blue jeans and this t-shirt comes over to me after the races. We're waiting to get out of the track. He goes, did you really run a 30? And I said, I don't know why. And he said, well, I heard you did. I said, I don't know. I kind of laughed at him, and he would not stop. And finally I looked at him, I said, we didn't run a 30. And I thought he was just a spectator.
Yeah.
So the next night, we run second. And this old guy in these blue jeans and this t-shirt walks over to me and puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, I really want to thank you for that 30 tip. But I said, who in the heck are you? He said, puts his hand on it and goes, I'm Bubby Jones.
Oh!
And I wound up and whacked him one. And I said, what? I never met him. I never met Bubby before. And for like the next 25 years, all the way up to the year that he had passed, we'd talk on Christmas, and he'd always ask me if I was still running. He retired that night after that race. He never raced again. That was it.
I looked the other night particularly at how clean cut and professional these young guys are. I'm going to miss a few, but I'm going to use Spencer Baston as an example. I'm going to use Brad Sweet. I'm going to use Sheldon Hordenshield. I'm going to use, I got to tell you, there was 10 or 12 of these kids that were clean shaven, perfect hair, immaculate race suit, really strong social media program. There's some super professional young guys. It's a long way from those years that you were
Bobby
talking
Jones?
about.
Yeah, or back at all of us. It doesn't-
Any of them.
Yeah, any of them.
Long hair, beards, a
Ron
flannelette
Schmidt.
shirt.
Whatever. We can throw Carl Kenzer in there to whatever. I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it was a total different way. But I can tell you right now, if we were all going to line up in the pits and we were going to have a King of the Hill battle, all them young guys would be running the other way when you turn these other guys loose. It was just a whole different era. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a bunch of badasses
Yeah.
that came out of the hood most of the time, like small town kids that were gearheads that went up and down the streets in their cars and burned rubber and probably got more tickets than we can all imagine or
Yeah.
whatever. And it was just a different era where they all, and none of them had 10 cents. If you go back, I promise you, if we talk about Steve, we talk about Jack, Doty, Danny, Kaufman, none of them, they all raced to eat.
Hewitt. Yep.
Jack Hewitt. I got a good story about him. But but at the end of the day, there was just a different air, and they raced different. They lived it. They slept it. They didn't run up and down the road in high-end motorhomes.
Yeah. Yep.
They had the race to eat. And a lot of the kids now that are starting aren't racing just to eat. They already can eat, and they don't have to worry about going home and eating. So it's just a different era where, no different. You watch NASCAR. Could you imagine?
Yeah, Dale Earnhardt in this era.
Yeah, they would,
Yep.
or Kyle Larson and Steve Kenzer butting heads on the track and getting out of the car. And you think Kyle Larson would ever get out of the car? No, you know, but it's just a different era of different people.
And it's like back in the day, obviously, you know, Horde was, I saw him run at Eldora and it changed my life, you know, running that Pennzoil car. But the heroes that I had are no better or worse than the heroes that kids right now have, right? Larson and, you know, and Sheldon and Hunter and Logan and all those guys, right? It's just that it seems more vivid when you're that age, when you're a kid.
Well, with the social media now, you're always under scrutiny. You're always under a microscope. Back then, people didn't have phones, didn't have microscopes. Hell, there might be a backyard fight in the back of the pits and nobody even knew about it. Now it'd be like in 30 seconds, it'd be all over social media.
Yeah.
You know? So...
I preferred it the old way.
In a lot of ways. I mean, because it would settle a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on right now in the sport that I don't agree with, and a lot of things going on where they write BS and they hide behind it on their laptop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't agree with none of that kind of stuff.
No.
You know. I will tell you, one night we were at Bloomington, Indiana. That's where Steve was from.
Mm-hmm.
Racing with Hod. He was leading the race, and 2 laps to go, he hits Jimmy Carr lapping him, flips him, and knocks the living heck out of our car. I mean, blows the whole right side almost off. So there's 2 laps to go, and we all strolled up. There's a red flag. They had to get Jimmy out of the car and all that, and we couldn't fix it. And so we tied the Jacobs ladder that together to hold it together. And Steve's running second behind us. And I was so mad at Jack. I said, listen, I don't give a shit how you win this thing. You're going to have to win this thing. And we had to tie the Jacobs ladder together, so just run it. Well, it came down to the last corner, the last lap. Steve gave him the slide. Jack didn't let him go. So both of them went off the track at Bloomington, spun off backwards, sitting there. And Steve was a big name at Bloomington.
Yeah.
So there was beer cans and bottles and everything flying over the fence at Jack. And back then, nobody had 4-wheelers and all that, except for me, because that's how I got around.
Yeah.
So I rode out there and was going to push him back. And them 2 are just yelling back and forth. And I come riding up there. And all of a sudden, Hod flips his belts back and says, I swear to God, he said it too. He said, Kenzer, get your big ass out of that car. I'm going to beat your ass right here, right now. And I looked at Steve and he looked at me, and I swear, he almost burst out laughing.
Yeah.
And he looks at him, he goes, what? And all of a sudden, a blur goes by me, and one of Kenzer's crew guys winds up and just pastes Jack in the car. Okay? So I pulled my 4-wheeler in reverse, gonna take off forward, and this crew guy takes off running, and I turn around behind me. Here's Jack Hewitt on a dead run.
Oh.
And this crew guy sees him coming, so he's running down the front straightaway at Bloomington, Indiana, and Hewitt's chasing him. Well, Hewitt went about halfway down the straightaway and said, "To hell with this, I ain't chasing this guy all the way around." So he comes walking back, and I push Jack back.
Oh, no. Yep.
Okay, so the second best line of the night, we're sitting there. I'm looking at my car. This big guy walks by the side of the car. I'm sitting by the right rear. This big guy walks by. I'm watching him. He walks straight up to our trailer door, and Jack's standing on the trailer door. This guy's like 6'6".
Yep.
And Jack's looking at him. He goes, "Listen, you little SOB. That Steve Kenzer's one of my best friends. I'm going to kick your ass right here, right now." And we were parked beside Jack Hewitt. So Jack Hewitt jumps from one trailer door to the next, pushes Jack almost down, pushes him out of the way. And he's looking at this big guy. He's looking up at him. And the whole entire time he's getting the suit off. He's trying to get his suit tied around his waist. And he said, "Listen to me, you big son of a bitch." He goes, "This little guy right here just lapped me. But there's one good thing about this fight." This guy's like really serious. He goes, "What? I'm going to get first or second this fight. It don't even matter." And that guy, he didn't even have a comeback. He goes, "What?" He said, "I'm going to get first or second in this fight." The guy turned around. He was so bewildered, he walked off. And I mean, I couldn't even, my car was crashed and banged, but I couldn't even hardly start laughing when he would come up with that line. I was like, "You gotta be kidding me," you know? But that was the good old days, like that, you know? So
that's a great story.
We had a lot of fun. And I mean, it is a different era. The kids are different. Racing is different. You're, like I said, even with your own, racing with Brady was different. You're under a microscope. If you they say, well, your dad's this or that or whatever, and blah blah blah. And at the end of the day, I mean, the only way I was going to race with Brady was the right way, and I wanted him to learn the right way, and we had to race that way. And I was in no hurry to get him from here to here. I wanted him, first off, to learn, second off, to be safe. Because when you're the dad, that's what you do.
Absolutely.
And it's a hard thing to do, you know. And you see, the difference is most of the kids that race, like with their dads, usually the dad's not working on them. Usually the dad has the checkbook and is just writing it. And it's a little bit different way of doing that way. You know? The only father-son deal that I've seen over all these years that's really been really successful was Danny and Don. And trust me, I was there when they were 16, 17, 18. And it was Danny was really hard on Donnie. Everybody can think what they can think, but he was hard on him. And I was there to the whole point of that when he was 16, 17, 18 years old.
I once read, we had a fashion magazine come to Claremont Speedway. No idea what sprint car racing was about. The journalist wrote that a race fan reads a race like you or I reads a book. I was like, man, that's pretty profound, because we'll go, look at Brown, he's on the top, it's coming. Or wow, look at Schuhart on the bottom, that thing's what we analyze every corner of every lap. As a fan, you go, oh, that thing looks like a handful, or man, that thing's coming. Can you ever stop yourself and just see the sheer beauty of a sprint car? Or do you always want a better speed and a better corner and a better, you know what I'm saying by that? Can you look at it, or you're always an off-duty policeman going, that should be doing that?
No, there's some nights where you could sit back and say, wow, that thing was good. Man, he drove it amazing, and that way. I mean, you don't always have to put it under a microscope. It still is a sprint car on dirt. And at the end of the day, it's always going to be that way, and it's always going to be grassroots racing. So, yeah, there's plenty of nights you can say, man, that thing was good, or man, he saved us, he drove amazing, whatever, you know. There's times you can do that. There's times that a race gets away. There's times you win races, and then in the end, if you do it long enough, it evens out. You know, I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me what race that ever got away that you wish you had. You know, and you sit there and you think about it, and there's a few that you wish you got. There's a few though that you got that were right down to the end, to the wire that you won, that you'd win by a foot or whatever, like Brown did with Reitzel this last week here. Had a few of them in my life too.
Yeah.
And they even out if you do it long enough.
So all the prize money gets cashed. You know, it gets spent on this, gets spent on this, gets spent on motors, gets spent on all those things. But what doesn't get spent is friendships and respect. And that's something that you can't cash in. And after all these years, can you even imagine the friendship base that you have all over the world with this sport? Is that something that you go, you know what, regardless of what we did or didn't win, pretty cool life?
Oh, I thought about that. I mean, the guys that I've met from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the Bob Millers with Kading's crew to all the way to the Pennsylvania guys to the companies, but probably the most fun ever that we ever had was always the California trip, and it was always had to do with the Kadings with Brent and Bob and Ned, and they'd always have a party there, and Calistoga was amazing. Chico was fun. They had San Jose Speedway yet at the time. There was 100 cars in the pits at the Outlaw Show at San Jose. Yeah. I mean, that was probably the most fun. People don't realize how much fun. It wasn't fun just because of all them. It was fun because of what you just said right there. All the people that you met and all the friends you made, from going to the High Five Pizza to Calistoga, and everybody camped at Calistoga. And it was amazing, and the friends you made and the people that you met, and they don't have that anymore out there right now. And Calistoga isn't what Calistoga used to be when they used to race there. Everybody used to stay there and camp. But the whole group of us, like even when we raced San Jose Speedway, back when we had that many cars, we raced Friday and Saturday. On Sunday, on the mile, they raced the flat track motorcycle guys. So they stayed at the same hotel with us. Now I'm here to tell you, talking about a party.
Yeah.
With those guys too, and everybody became friends with Moorhead or Springsteen or Carr or guys like that, and hung out with them kind of guys, and the people I met from AJ Foyt to Earnhardt Sr. to all of them. I went to dinner with Earnhardt. I've been out with AJ. I mean, all them kind of guys like that. You'll never forget that. And AJ was always one of my heroes.
Yeah, and you can become friends with your heroes in our sport.
And I did become good friends with him, you know?
So there's not many kids you meet will say, I love school, right? There just isn't.
Yep.
It's either not cool to love school or it's a drag. It's not until you leave it, if you work it out, every day at school you see your best friends on the whole planet. If you try to get your best friends together now, it'll take you a year to get them all in one place because life gets in the way.
Yep.
Every week in the pits, you're with your best friends.
I agree with that in some ways. It's not the way it used to be though. I mean, maybe because I'm older and I don't hang out as much with all them guys anymore like you used to hang out. But with this, it always seems like the social media or the phones, nobody talks or socializes like they used to.
Yep.
They text. Go in a restaurant. You can look around the restaurant.
Yeah.
There's a family sitting in the booth, and all four of them are on their phones texting. They're not talking like we used to.
And you and I you just asked me what NFG stands for, right? And we're both trying to work it out. I guess it's not effing good.
Yeah.
But there's LOL. There's all those things, and I feel bad, guy, because I'm filming this on a phone, but there is a positive to this technology, but there's a lot more that worries me.
Oh, I mean, I was like for my kids, and they can testify to this. I was like hell bent. No, for a long time, you're not having phones.
Yeah.
And they have their phones and they do their thing on them now. And I mean, you're considered a nerd if you don't have all that kind of stuff. But I still think that back in the day, in the era when we raced, everybody talked and socialized in the bar together. We were way closer than the guy that was over in the corner, smack talking you on his phone and saying this guy over here is saying that, whatever. It's just a different era. And,
yeah, it is.
I mean, no different. I don't care what sport you're talking about.
That's right.
Look at.
It's not just us.
Yeah.
No. It's still beautiful, mate. Isn't it? It's still beautiful.
No, I mean, this sport is still. You've seen it at Knoxville. That's the most people I've ever seen in Knoxville this weekend.
Yeah.
And how pumped up them people were to watch that race and see what it was, and to bring all them people around it. And honestly, I thought there'd be more cars even there because a lot of the Pennsylvania guys didn't come this year, and we didn't. We are getting more California guys. For a while that was kind of going away, but now there's getting to be a lot of pretty stout California kids.
Yeah. Oh my God.
The
West Coast is the force.
They are right now. They are, and honestly, I guess you're learning that those micros definitely are a way to start your kids if you want to try to see if they can race or not. But I still think though, I mean, watching some of them at 16, 17, 18. They still kind of plateau a little bit until they grow up. Once they get out here on the road, they have the talent, but they'll plateau. No different than Larson. I mean, he was, when you first seen him, it was like, holy buckets, he just won at Knoxville, never even been here. And then he goes to Eldora and does the same thing.
Yeah.
And then he kind of plateaued again. But then all this last stuff that's went on with him on social media and all that, and he got back going here again, he's really turned into a focusing machine now. He's definitely hard focused on where he's going and what he's doing, and it doesn't matter what he drives. I would be surprised if he doesn't light up Indy next year.
Complete this sentence for me, Guy. I love sprint cars still because
it's my whole life, except for my kids.